what it is.
All right, Rocky Mountain Prospector Ryan here. I've been asked by a few people to do a demonstration on pans, different types of pans, and how to pan. So I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration. I'm going to throw my recommendations into it, try to tell you which pans work best for me, what I've found over the years, and show you what types of pans are good for what situations and when you should probably use them. So, all right, first step, find yourself a panning spot. In a good panning spot, you're not going to have any flows, no current, nothing like that, and you're going to have space and enough depth to actually get your pan fully submerged in the water. So this is going to be my spot. The river comes down, takes a little bit of a bend right here. I'm going to dig a hole over into here for all of the my panning to be done in. Hopefully the current will stay over here. Won't have any current on this side. So I'm going to dig a hole right there. And all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it with my largest pan I have. Make sure I can fully submerge it. And I can. So if I can submerge it fully, I'm going to be able to wash. All right, I'm going to show you the different types of pans there are out there. Going from the biggest to the smallest. Here's the Garrett Super Sluice. This is one of the biggest pans on the market. Really deep undercut, you notice here. This pan holds a lot of material, holds pounds of material. That's going to be a tough one to keep up all day if you're doing sampling around, especially if it's a lot of sampling in one spot. It's one thing if you're moving from place to place and you have time in between. This isn't the pan you're going to want to use for a whole day, all day, every day. But it's nice when you're sampling, trying to see if there's actually little specks of gold in a bunch of material pretty fast, because you can move the material through this one really quick. Go from there. This one's a Proline Pan. Notice most of these are green so far. Green's a good color. Good thing about green compared to black, I've moved away from black just because it's really hard to see the black sands. Shows up the gold really good, shows up silver really good, anything covered in mercury. But with black, you can't see the black sands as well, so you don't have as easy a time removing them. You notice from the Garrett Super Sluice, those have really big riffles in there. These riffles are a lot sharper and a lot smaller. This is a good all-around pan. This is a good pan to move all your concentrates, concentrate it down even further. Then you can move on to my two favorite pans. I just told you I moved away from the black. This is the pan I started working with that I really, really like. This one's an Estwing, good quality company. They use the rock picks. I also use their big geopaleo pick to pick out big spots. This one has two different places on it. You've got the sharp little riffles that are fairly large on this side, and then you've got the finishing riffles on this side. That's key, especially when you're in a fine gold area, to be able to have two different types of riffles, because you can move in the same pan from your unclassified material or your 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch classified material to finishing it off after you've already removed all the large rocks on this side to this side where you can actually move the material out. I moved from black to blue. Blue seems to show up the black sands a lot better. The garnet sands, which are really, I mean, those are all really heavy and they're going to stay in your pan a long time. Still same exact, this one's actually a Keen. This one's an Estwing, but if you look at them, they're basically the same exact pan. I think they're made by the same company, just put a new sticker on them. But great pan. I've gone with a smaller pan. You notice size difference here. This one fits inside of here. This one is a great size for when you're doing a lot of concentrates. You heard the pump probably fire up here. We're dredging, have a lot of concentrates from dredges. This size of a pan isn't too big. You can put a lot of material in here. Your wrist doesn't get tired. It's a really good pan to start with. There is another one by Garrett. It's a finishing pan. This one's a good one also. You notice it doesn't have as large of a base in the bottom. A little harder to swirl with because there's not as much base or space in the base down here. but there's a lot of riffle space up in here, and they're really, really small, so you can move that larger material off pretty easily. There is also a large slick plate around the entire thing, so when you're finishing it off, you've got a lot of slick plate area to remove the really fine blonde sands. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to show you panning in my favorite pan, and I'm just going to scoop overburden, so there's not going to be any gold in this. But when we're doing concentrates, that's about the amount of material we put in there for concentrates. If you're doing sampling, you could load this pan all the way to the top. I mean, as much material as you can put in there, the better. But for sampling, that's about the, I mean, for panning the concentrates, that's about the right amount of material. So, as I showed you before, you have to agitate the water. And I'm going to show you this from a different perspective so you can see down in and see what I'm seeing from my perspective. Okay, this is what it looks like from my perspective. So we've put the material in the pan. Now you're going to start agitating it. You can't really over agitate this. The only way you can over agitate it is if you see material starting to slop over the sides. You don't want to see it slop over the sides. You also don't want to see material that's too dry. You don't want to classify like this with just a little bit of water in the pan. There's not enough material moving in there. If you notice, this material isn't moving down and nothing's moving up. So you want to put it in there so it's in a liquid state. You notice how those rocks are all moving around and jumping around in there? That's good agitation. Moving around in circles, there's no wrong way to do it. What you want to do in the end before you start doing your like when you start moving material out of the pan, you want to focus all of your effort in your mind on this point. I'll show you on the other pan that doesn't have anything in it. Focus everything to that point. So if you notice, this pan is going this direction here and this direction here. So that's focusing all of your heavies into this groove right here. So as you start to move material out, you're moving the light material on the top. The heavy material is all staying down in these grooves and catching as it's going out. So you're going to see that. So as I'm agitating, notice slick here, angle going back down here. All the lights are coming up to the top, heavies are going to the bottom. Now you move, actually the best thing to do at this point, I always just grab all these bigger rocks at the top and I move those off the end. Big rocks are not a good thing in panning. They can mess up your flow a lot. Okay, so we classify it down. Now, you're just, look how I'm not picking it up and letting it drop. I'm not sloshing in and out. I'm doing just what the waves would be doing over here. I'm just moving material with the wave action. Now there's two different schools of thought with this. There's people, and notice I classify again because I've moved some material out, so I reclassify down so everything heavy goes to the bottom. Two schools of thought. Some people like to do the back and forth action. Notice how material's still moving out. And there's the other school of thought that's the wave action, in and out. This one's worked better for me. Different people like different things. Those are two different ways of doing it. If you notice, I'll dump this out. Look how much material I'm down to now. It's a lot finer material, not as many big rocks in there anymore. Just going to continue to move that out the bottom. These are just bigger rocks at the top. Pull those out. Moving it all out the end. Haven't seen any black sands yet. When you see black sands, I always classify it back down so the blonde sands come back to the top. This is just overburden, so there's not going to be a lot of black sands. Anytime I see a big rock in there, I always take it out. Okay, now you can see it's to this point. That's really fine sand. These riffles aren't going to do much for me anymore. So then I rotate this pan to the side. Reclassify everything. You can't re-stratify things by making the water turbulent again. Now it's back down. You notice there's blonde sands on top. Those blonde sands start to move down. I can see some black sand in this, which is surprising since it came right off the top. There are black sands in this. If you can see next time I take it down a little bit. I'll show you one thing I do. See this big rock right here? I'll move these big rocks out on the side, make sure there's no gold attached to it, and then flick those off the side. A little water inside of here. The bigger rocks, I push them off to the side, flick those out, because those will get caught. They can move gold out. Okay. Do that a couple more times. And I am moving black sands out, but I'm watching the entire time to see if I see any micro gold moving down with it. A couple more of these little rocks, I'm going to move those out to the side. Now I'm going to move to the slick plate. This is kind of more of an advanced technique. Don't recommend it in the beginning. Once you get your pan down to that much material, you're basically done. You can fan this material at this point and look to see if you have any gold. Once you get to this point though, you can still move it up the side. And if you notice, there's black sands right in the center and blonde sands around the edges. Now you can pull those blonde sands that are on the edges off. Re-stratify, stratify again. Notice the blonde sands move to the outside. Now we're down just a little bit of material. Then you put a little bit of water back in, not too much, but then you'll fan all this material out to see if there's any gold in it. I do not expect to see gold in this. Actually, it's crazy. There is, you probably can't see it on there. There are a couple little teeny tiny -100 specks in there. Little tiny ones. But that is how you pan. If you're done, clean it out good, you're ready to go. One of the things I did not show you is the classifier. Classifying speeds up panning immensely. This is a 1/4 inch screen. You can put this directly inside of your pan, fill it up with water, put your classifier in there, and you can actually move material straight into the classifier. This is going to speed up the process because then you're going to take all the big rocks out. That just took out everything that's more than 1/4 inch. Dump that aside because I know there's no nuggets in this area. And I'll show you the material that's left. Look at that material. That's down to highly classified material. It's less than 1/4 inch. That's really easy to move. You don't have any big rocks to deal with that are going to mess you up. So that's one thing. Whenever you're out sampling, I always take along a classifier. Speeds you up a lot. Makes your life pretty easy. Look at that material. It's really easy to move around. Well, I hope you liked the tutorial. Hopefully it helps everybody out. I know in the beginning it would have been really nice if I had people that helped me out. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I didn't have anybody in person live to help me out, and I know I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. That's just prospecting. You get better with time, you get better at panning with time, and there's a lot of different techniques out there, and trying to find one that works well for you is probably the best thing. Try a bunch. One good thing to try out, get some bird shot. Go out and just buy a box of lead shot, hammer it down flat with a hammer, and put that in your pan. Count out how many pieces you put in, and you can actually put those pieces right in your pan, pan it out, make sure all those pieces end up in your pan at the very end. That's going to show you about as good as you're going to do with gold, because they're about the same weight. They will act about the same in your pan, so that's a good thing to try out in the beginning. I'd highly recommend that.